Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video is super exciting because I'm going to be sitting down and doing a big chat about the flower farm and also answer some questions that I've received. It is officially spring and the garden is super busy at the moment, both the kind of cottage garden that we have closer to the house and also a flower farm down the backyard area. If you're new here, my name is Robin and I live here on the south coast of New South Wales with my partner and our two cats, and we, or more so I, am starting a flower farm in the backyard. I absolutely adore growing flowers as well as food. We grow a lot of our own food here, predominantly like greens and herbs, and this year we're also going to be growing a lot more now that we've kind of prepped a few different areas for both food and flowers. But today's video is going to be a little bit of a chatty video where I will do some overlays of, what the garden is looking like and the things that I talk about. But make sure for this video that you grab a cup of tea or coffee or some other beverage. I have a green tea today that I will be sipping on, next to a gorgeous bunch of spring flowers that I picked this morning. I am filming my day today, doing like a day in the life, so that will be up either before or after this video as well. I also have my laptop here because I kind of have a bit of a plan for this video, which I really need, or else I'm just going to ramble on all different directions and not actually get the points out that I want to talk about. So for today's video, the flower farm update, I'm just going to talk about what the farm looks like at the moment, what all of the garden areas look like and what sizes they are, how big my beds are, that kind of thing. We also got our soil test results done, so I'll share that. What we are ready to harvest, so just some of the flowers that I picked today, what I have planted, what's doing really successful, seedlings that I'm about to plant, how much I have spent, like the total cost of everything so far, and just a few things of what I wish I did differently. And then a few different topics and questions that people have sent through that I will cover, and I'll probably do another Q&A in future just about all of these questions because I did receive quite a few, which is so awesome. And I know a lot of you out there are also potentially starting or want to start something like this, a backyard business or a flower farm or a little market garden. So I will just run through my thoughts, how I'm feeling overall, to hopefully give a little bit of insight about that. Okay, so I'm going to be looking down a little bit at my laptop at my notes, but in terms of what the flower farm is looking like at the moment, apart from all of the super muddy pathways and the aesthetic of it, which isn't looking fantastic, it's doing pretty well considering how much rain we have. The water table here has risen so high that really anywhere that I'm digging holes is just filling up with water. We have very clay soils here, so it's quite slow to kind of drain through the landscape. So that is the main reason why I did no dig beds and build a little bit up above ground. I was kind of deciding whether to do raised beds or not. Raised beds is just a little bit too expensive right now, and I just really want to get stuff growing in the ground. The soil also that we do have is really great in nutrients, so I want to make use of that. So that's why I went for the no dig beds. They will slowly decompose and work into the soil. In terms of rows, down the very back I have 5 rows that are fully done, which I'm super happy about. And they are about 8 meters in length, and I did 80 centimeter rows. That was recommended for flower farming, and also a lot of market gardens use that length. You'll find that when you're purchasing things like row covers and a lot of different tools, usually around 80 centimeters is what people measure off by. It's really good because you can come in from either sides and reach in and not have to really extend yourself to get to all of the plants in the bed. So I went with that for the width of the rows, and then I did 60 centimeter pathways, which was also kind of recommended. I will see whether or not the plants get big and I have to kind of work my way through the jungle, but we'll see how that goes. I feel like that was a really great use of the space down the very back. I also did add a few more beds closer up to the house that might be either veggie or flower beds. I'm not too sure, but because of the area that I had there, I made these beds a little bit wider. So I did 1.2 meter width, and that's fine because whatever I plant in there in terms of flowers or food, I will probably grow larger things that kind of like sprawl out or ramble around the area. And those two areas, they are 4 meters in width. So I have quite a good space to work with to start off with, and I also have all of the different foliage plants around that are already here, and the cottage garden, which is directly next to the house. So I think that's a good space to work with. We are on half an acre here. Obviously not all of it. I could be planting rows and rows of flowers, but eventually I'll expand, and as I go, add more beds. I do have a lot of areas already covered with just black plastic. Those I'll probably just plant like pumpkins or watermelons or rock melons over summer in those areas, just because getting all of the compost and all the cardboard for the no-dig beds was a lot of work, and I'm kind of done with that for a little bit. So that's what we're doing down there. I am yet to order some mulch for the pathways. That's next week's job. I'm just going to be ordering some just chip mulch in, whatever they have available, and I will fill in the pathways. But for now, some of them I have used just like chop and drop method of some of the trees and bushes that I was cutting back around the property, and just chopping and dropping that in the pathways. So yeah, I'm excited to make it a little bit more aesthetic because yeah, the cardboard right now isn't fantastic looking, but that's okay. I don't really care about that right now. What I do care about was my soil test results that came back. So I will grab them up on the computer here, and I will put an overlay of what the results are on the screen as well for you to have a look. So there's a few different places that you can get your soil tested with. A lot of different agricultural companies and groups will do this. I just went with the Department of Primary Industries, the New South Wales Government Office, and they do soil testing, and it's super simple. They send you out a kind of like tube with the instructions and a bag, and they send that out for free, and then they send you the invoice depending on what test you go with. You send it back for free as well, and it was really quick. The ladies I was speaking to was absolutely lovely, really, really helpful. So if you are in New South Wales and you're looking for a really easy, good and fast soil testing kit, then DPI was really great in my opinion. In terms of my results, super interesting. I do have a little bit of a soil science background, so it is useful just to have a little bit of an understanding on what the different components mean, and depending on what type of soil test you want to go with. I went with the horticultural test. I think that's what it's called. Let me double check. Yeah, I went with the horticulture test, which does pretty much everything in the package, and it's $130 for the test. And they basically send you back all of the results. And what's useful, which I'll put on the screen, is the interpretation of the soil test kit results. So that it'll say whether it's high or low, and whether it's acceptable or not for growing kind of a general range of different plants. I have pretty acidic soils, which I knew that I did. When I did my pH test, it was about 5.5, which was what I got back with the results. I noticed my chloride was fairly low. So chloride can help with plant hydration and the importance of kind of like the water regulation in plant cells. What else? Mainly like my biggest problem was the acidity, the acidic soils. When you have acidic soils or really alkaline soils, it just means that the plants can't uptake the correct amount of nutrients that they might need to survive and be kind of flourishing plants. So there are some really great graphs. I'll add one up on the screen as well, which kind of shows you what happens when your soil is too acidic or too alkaline. You can have different trace elements that might be lacking, and that is the plants not being able to take a lot of these up. So when it's more acidic, you can have deficiencies in things like phosphorus, potassium and sulfur, which I kind of had with my results, and you can have okay iron, manganese, boron, copper and zinc, which kind of was also reflected in the results that I had. Something I really want to work on is the sulfur and phosphorus. That's really important for flowers, for flower growth. So I really need to find some amendments to add in. The compost that I did add onto the existing soil will have correct amounts of phosphorus in it, but it might not be enough to balance what's already in the soil. And a few people have asked, like, why did you do your soil test results when you've already put some compost on? And that's because, one, I just didn't have enough time. I really needed to get some of these plants in the ground. But also I did a pH test on the compost that I did have, which was a little bit more alkaline, which will balance out the acidic soils that I have. So it was really great that I added that on. Acidity wise and pH wise, it's going to hopefully help to balance it a little bit more. But I think I might do another test in maybe a few months to see what's happening in terms of the compost and the phosphorus elements that I do add on top, and see where I'm at. And this is really important to regularly do soil tests, just to make sure that you're not depleting your soils of any trace elements that you might be taking out every time you're growing plants in an area. There's a lot of other things on here, but I'm just generally focusing on those kind of main elements that I know I can alter. So I wasn't surprised also that we had high organic carbon and nitrogen. It used to be my Ulpa's veggie patch, this area, so I know he used to apply a lot of manure and compost to this area, so happy about that. But yeah, I do need to do a little few tweaks with amendments, and let me know if you would want a little bit more information on that, and I can do a separate video on that as well. In terms of things that are ready to harvest and are ready for me to go and pick, I have obviously been picking a lot of these gorgeous ranunculus. I have a rainbow row of them, which are looking absolutely stunning, and also some more kind of specialty varieties from Tessela that I had in my wooden boxes that are looking a little bit sad after the rain, but I have been enjoying them. And I'm just learning how these grow. This is the first time I've ever grown them, and I'm learning how they last in arrangements, how much vase life they have, what time of day to pick them, when I should pick them, what bud stage, how they open up in the vase. There is so much that I'm learning about these flowers, and really all of the flowers that I have in the garden. So I'm not going to be selling any of these. I will be taking some of them to the nursing home though, to share with all of the beautiful ladies and men there, which I think will really enjoy some of the flowers. But other than that, I've been picking a lot of Linaria, lots of foliage that's ready. I'm trying to look outside right now and see what I have. There was some lavender that I was picking, lots of brassica flowers, snapdragons. Yeah, that's kind of and some stock. That's kind of the main flowers that I have been picking. And in terms of what I've planted already, I have some cornflowers, lots of statice, sea holly, billy buttons, feverfew planted, and this is generally solely for the flower farm. I've also got a few snapdragons that I planted in one of the rows yesterday, and lots of other seedlings. So I have asters, feverfew, lemon basil, ready to kind of be propagated and then get out in the ground. And I know this is just rattling off a lot, but this is just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the plants that I'm growing at the moment. And in terms of what I'm going to be sowing, I got really overwhelmed yesterday because I pulled out all of my packets of seeds, and it's time to get seeds in the ground. Like, I need to be getting succession sowings of zinnias going, cosmos, celosia, all the flowers, all the beautiful flowers, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And I had a little bit of a moment yesterday when I was really overwhelmed, and I just need to stop and just remember it's fine if I fail. It's completely fine. I'm going to be focusing on flowers that I really know how to grow this year. So that's going to be a lot of zinnias, a lot of cosmos, and just really focus on the soil and getting some fencing up and all of those other things. But yeah, there is a lot that I'm going to be planting. I think in the vlog that I'm filming today, I might sit down and rattle through all of those seeds, but that's a little snapshot of what things look like and what flowers are blooming. In terms of how much I have spent, I got a little bit nervous when I read my notes. Let's go through that. I'm going to pull up roughly, generally everything that I have spent for the flower farm, that is. Keeping in mind, some of these things were gifted, some of them I already had, some of them I used my own money. Yeah. Okay, I had to do a little bit of calculations, but roughly I have spent about $1,500 on the flower farm right now. A lot of that was the compost. So for the flower farm area, it was just over $300 for the compost, which was a veggie mix of like mushroom compost and some other amendments. All of the cardboard I got free, which was an ordeal, but definitely free from the tip and just random people who were giving cardboard away. Other than that, a lot of the that money, about $811, was spent on tools and just random things that I picked up. So this would probably be my one piece of advice, is to not keep going to Bunnings and buying random things that you probably don't need. I'm trying to remember what all of these things are. So these are things like, I know I've spent a lot of money on sugarcane mulch, which I know I could have picked up a lot cheaper if I would have bought in bulk. That's one thing that I really remember going to Bunnings quite a lot and just picking up like a bag here or there, same as potting mix and seed raising mix. Those three things, I know I have just been picking them up every few weeks, adding them to my expenses, and that's where a lot of this money has gone. In hindsight, I really should have ordered just like a bulk amount of potting mix or seed raising mix and made my own seed raising mix and just had a really great stash of that in one of the sheds. But because with all of the rain that we've been having, I was finding a lot of things were just getting moldy and I didn't have correct storage for that. So, you know, I think I did the best that I could, but yeah, if I was to save a little bit more money, I probably would have bought those things in bulk. Same with the sugarcane mulch. Yeah, I did also spend about $212 on the broad fork. That was another big expense, but that was a investment in my opinion. The other big purchases that I'm seeing are all from Bunnings. Yay! So much Bunnings. I also did pick up some things like flower netting, which was about $50. Yeah, a lot of this is just mulch, really. Mulch from Bunnings and potting mix and things like that. That's where a lot of that $800 went to. And in terms of seeds, this is where it gets a little bit of tricky because I've been given so many seeds, I had so many seeds, and I have bought some seeds just with my own money for the cottage garden, which will then spill over into the flower farm. I haven't really categorized it as a full kind of like business expense for the flower farm. But in terms of seeds, I've probably spent about $150 with seeds. And that is kind of okay in my opinion. Like, it's my learning year. I did also that also includes some dahlia tubers, which were about $10 each or so, and some green manure mulch. So I think $150 for seeds is pretty good in my opinion. The other things that I have on my expenses, which was another, again, $200, $150, was just some extra plants. So that was things that I wanted for foliage, like lots of leptospermums, the Christmas bushes, the woolly bushes, viburnums, just a lot of other things that I just wanted for foliage and just also, you know, have around the garden. I did kind of class those within that business expense as well. So that is generally how much I have spent. This was up until the end of the financial year. So I have spent a little bit since then, not a lot though, probably maybe an extra like $100 or so, probably on mulch and potting mix. But a lot of the like pots and seed raising trays I got for about $20 from the tip. They were just stacked up there and they were all in perfect good quality. I just got stacks of nursery equipment from there. So I think I pretty much have most of the bigger expenses paid for. So if I can make $1,600 with the flower farm, like, you know, this summer, that would be amazing. We'll see how we go. So I'm kind of aiming to make, like, within my first year, which is going to, you know, be this summer and going into autumn, to make somewhere around $1,600 would be really great, just to cover all of those expenses. If not more, would be absolutely great, but yeah, we'll see how we go. In terms of a few things that I wish I did differently, I definitely wish I was a little bit more specific in my expenses. Just, I'm not an accountant or a businesswoman, even though I really need to kind of get in that mindset. I record everything, but my labeling of things could be a little bit better. So that's what I wish I would do. I have a whole system now to do all of that, but towards the beginning, I wasn't even really sure if I wanted to do this flower farm, and I wasn't recording, you know, like the specifics. I was just recording like the expenses, the dollar amount with a little description, but I wish I was a little bit more thorough on the descriptions of my expenses. I also just wish I didn't wait as long to do things. Like, I feel like I'm holding back on planting a lot of my spring seeds, my summer seeds, because I'm a little bit nervous on how they'll go. I think I just need to accept that not all of them are going to grow the way I want them to, or look how I think they're going to look. I just need to just take the leap and just plant them and grow them and see what happens. And I also wish I did film a little bit more, but I've kind of just been struggling sometimes just with my, you know, imposter syndrome that I seem to have with everything that I do. I'm very new to this. I don't have a horticultural background. I'm just learning, seeing what happens, writing things down when things go wrong so that maybe I can do it differently in the future. But yeah, sometimes I don't feel like I want to pick up the camera. But in hindsight, I always love looking back at how far I've come. So yeah, I want to start documenting a lot more. Okay, Rocky's going to join us for question time. He's just woken up from a nap, so he's a little tired, little floppy, but I'm going to run through a few topics and questions that I've been asked on Instagram. I put out like a little Q&A question box, and I will run through a few of those now. The first question was, can I grow dahlias in Queensland? And again, I'm not an expert or anything with growing dahlias. This is kind of like my first year of really properly giving them a solid go. I have grown them a few times, but not like this year. And I did grow them in the subtropics. So they're not traditionally grown in the tropical climates. And I have a few notes here that I've written down so I don't forget anything. But in the southern areas, like around Brisbane and the Gold Coast and, you know, inland like Stanthorpe and those areas, they definitely can grow, and they grow really successfully. There are a few varieties that are suited more so to the warmer climates, and there'll be breeders and growers in those areas, so it would be best to chat to them and see if they have any extra tubers available, because finding tubers and dahlias that are suited to your climate is really, really important. Often the hot days will result in kind of less blooms, or the blooms won't fully open properly. And you'll also potentially have increased bug pressure when you have higher humidity as well. So those are some things just to keep in mind. But I do know that there are some Facebook groups, and I think there's the Queensland Dahlia Society. I think they have a website that I have seen, and they do massive dahlia showings up there. They look absolutely beautiful. I would love to go to one of these shows. And a lot of those varieties and cultivars are kind of from that area. So there will definitely be some that are more suited to the warmer climates. Towards getting north of Rockhampton and up into the dry tropics and the wet tropics, I'm not too sure how they would grow, but I would love to know if you do have experience growing them in these areas. I also got a question, or kind of the topic of bulbs to talk about. I suppose that's maybe my experience or what I'm growing. Rocky's very interested in the flowers. Hi. You're not eating them. In terms of a lot of bulbs, I haven't tried a lot. This year I planted obviously the ranunculus and anemones and tulips and hyacinths. So I suppose I did kind of grow a few, but I didn't have a lot of experience growing any of these before, but what I do know, I had the best luck with the jonquils and daffodils, as well as the ranunculus. What didn't work so well, they did okay, was the anemones. I think that was just the soil and the pots that I was planting them in though. And the tulips. I didn't really have much luck with tulips, and a few people have said that around here and around kind of the Sydney area, that it just doesn't get too cold. It doesn't get cold enough for them to have that energy and the plant to kind of know to shoot up really tall and have those taller blooms. So yeah, I did try them but didn't have any luck, and I probably won't be putting too much energy into them again. They also just don't grow well in clay soils like we have, and with all of the water and the rain that we had, they just were struggling. But the ranunculus, amazing. I'm going to be trying to save a lot of the corms of these so that I can use them next year, and I will be planting a lot more next year. Favorite gloves and tools was another topic. In terms of my gloves, I go through a lot of gloves. Like any gardener or any person who works in regen or restoration will go through gloves, and they're a perfect Christmas present. Always get a gardener gloves. Yeah, I go through quite a lot because I kind of prefer the ones that fit my fingers really well. They're not too like big and bulky, so that I can actually move them and use the snips properly. The ones that I had written down here that I have and that I really do like are the Cyclone Invisigrip ones from Bunnings. They're not too expensive, pretty affordable. So yeah, I really like those. Although if I'm doing anything like heavy lifting or, you know, using tools for a long time, often I'll use like latex dipped gloves. This is if I'm also doing regen work and working with, you know, different poisons and things like that. Definitely latex dipped gloves, and that just ensures that my fingers and my hands are protected a lot more. But yeah, every few months I will go through a pair of gloves, so I always welcome gloves as Christmas presents and birthday presents. And in terms of tools, I found the broad fork is hands down my favorite tool to work with. I love that it just is so big and really easy to break up the soil, and there's something about hand tools that I really love. I just love being kind of connected to the earth a little bit more using these hand tools. It obviously takes a lot more time, but it is cheaper. There's a lot less things that can go wrong with a big hand tool like this versus like a rotary hoe or something like that. Not saying I'm against any of those, but for me, I'm a one-woman show with this flower farm, so yeah, the broad fork is definitely my favorite. Another question was, how much time do I put into the flower farm setting up? So all of like the compost and things like that, it was at least one full day every week to fortnight or so. But I'm usually out in the garden every single day for, I'd say on average, like half an hour or so, or half an hour to an hour. This is not including like seed sowing, potting up, things like that, which those sessions usually take like an hour or two just to get all the seedlings ready. So I know that was a very convoluted answer, and it's not really an answer, but it just really depends. But yeah, at least one full day a week when I was setting up the flower farm. The next question was favorite flower, easiest flower, and hardest flower to grow, which I thought was a really cool question. And I would love to know your answer to this question as well. My favorite so far, ranunculus. Absolutely beautiful. And one of my other favorites that I have grown previously and that I have a lot planted ready to go out into the flower farm area are asters. I really love the look of them. I love the kind of pastel colors that I have. I have lots of kind of pinky, salmon, dusty pink colors. So yeah, I'm really excited for asters. Easiest flower, I would have to say, in my personal opinion, is zinnias. I know some people can't grow them. I can't grow other simple flowers, so you know, it's really depending on the soil that you have and your climate, things like that. But for me, zinnias are always a bright and happy flower that are fairly easy to grow. And the hardest flower to grow, for a lot of people, this is probably one of the easiest, but for me, sunflowers. Hardest flower to grow. I would love rows and rows of sunflowers, but we just have so many parrots and birds around that they end up eating them. This happened to me in the city when I was growing sunflowers, when I lived in the 2 different houses that I've had on this YouTube channel. Just the birds would come along and snip them off at the ends and then peck out all of the seeds when they weren't even open, and it was so depressing and so sad. And I think the same thing's probably going to happen around here. So other than that, anything tall and straight with the strong winds that we get is really difficult to grow. All right, I have a few more questions on my phone. The first one is, who is the intended buyer or customer? And right now I'm aiming to sell at a smaller kind of country style market. So the customers will just be local people around, and I'm hoping just to have a few regular customers who would like to buy some jam jar posies and small little bunches and bouquets. I will also, depending on how confident I am and how I go with the flowers, be willing to sell to florists if they need certain types of flowers, and same with weddings as well. I would love to one day be supplying flowers for weddings, so that's a little bit further down the track when I learn more about all of the different flowers. But yeah, for now it will just be some local people around that I can just brighten up their homes and yeah, sell at the small scale markets around that we have here. Do you start your pansy/violas from seed? I did try this, but I found it was really tricky because they are such small little seeds, and I had maybe like 1 or 2 properly germinate, but for me it was just too hard, and I found that it was just so much easier to pick up little punnets from the nursery. So that's what I did with mine. Yeah, they're not a flower that I'm going to be selling unless I press some of the flowers and do kind of pressed flower arrangements on paper for cards and things like that. But yeah, I had like maybe 1 or 2 germinate, so they're pretty tricky for me to grow from seed, but let me know if you have any tips on that. I would love to know. Okay, do you have any snails or slugs? Yes. Any tips on dealing with them organically? Thanks. I don't have a lot of tips, unfortunately. I've tried beer traps. I've tried the oranges that you put on, the other way, and then they kind of like come underneath the orange, and then you can just scoop them up. I found anytime I see one, I just scoop them up, chuck them away, chuck them somewhere else. Another thing I did last night, actually, I went outside and just had a little bit of a look around, and I just found them just walking on the pathway. So I just picked a lot of them up and just chucked them away as well. So yeah, I know people use beer traps, sometimes like coffee grounds and eggshells around seedlings. I found that they haven't really helped, but yeah, I think it's just a problem that we will always be dealing with unless you want to go down the route of, using pellets and things like that, which I definitely won't be doing because we have a lot of native animals in this area. So yeah, maybe try buying some not great quality beer. Don't waste that on the slugs, and see how beer traps go maybe. And the last one that I will answer now, I can answer some more in future, was, have you ever dealt with an issue with powdery mildew? Any tips? Yeah, in the subtropics I had that a lot, and the main thing that helped with me was just making sure that, so I had this on a lot of cucumbers, not so much, actually on sunflowers I did have quite bad powdery mildew, and the ones that I would always trim the bottom leaves and just leave them completely bare just to make sure that they had enough airflow, they really weren't that affected. So I think airflow was just key with powdery mildew. Something I did also try was spraying milk, you just dilute milk in a mister and mist the leaves. I think that kind of did work on some of them. You just need to make sure that it's not going to rain directly after you do that. But yeah, having good airflow in your garden and plants is really important for powdery mildew, unless you have a lot of ladybugs around, which can help you out with powdery mildew, but we can't control nature, unfortunately. Not that I would really want to, because I love how it works. Good on you if you made it this far in the video. I need a little bit of a break right now, go and finish my tea, have some lunch, but yeah, that was a little bit of an update, where I'm at, what's happening, how much I've spent, all those things. There's so much that I could talk about the flower farm, and I probably will in a podcast. We do have a podcast, Diane and I, called Earthly Roots, always linked in the description if you would like to check it out. We always chat things homesteading and gardening and flower farming as well. I hope this was interesting and useful if you are starting a flower farm or a backyard business. I can also go into business details as well, like what I'm doing for that in future if you would like. Just, yeah, anything that you would like me to share, just leave it in the comments and I can definitely cover it in a video. But for now, I'm just going to rest my voice because I feel like I'm losing it, and have a relaxing afternoon probably. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this was useful. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe for lots more videos. Leaving things like comments and liking and subscribing really does help me out so much. So I really do appreciate it. And I do also have a Patreon page where I post extra videos over there and extra content about the flower farm and about my life. So yeah, I'm always thankful for anyone who wants to join over there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. And until my next one, happy gardening, everyone.